So we shall start. We'd like to welcome everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me at the outset to welcome you all. Organizations, figures, representatives of the UN and their relevant offices, UNHCR, Triple IM, the UN Special Envoy's Office, and all the Syrian organizations and our partners in Euromed Feminist Initiative, honorable prominent figures who are participating with us and launching our report. That is not the worst that can happen, it's also the waiting. We feel today modest before the missing, the pain, and the nostalgia that thousands of Syrian families are passing through. Those families who are suffering from pain, from poverty, from the suffering of the kidnapped, of their beloved people, of their relatives, and they won't feel safe and they won't feel the pain ease until they know anything, any news, any smile, any joy, any tears of the truth. Unfortunately, we as Syrians, we are still waiting, and that the international dysfunctioning is really pressing us and making us feel pain. We will continue, and we are pushed by the belief in our cause, in our justice, in the human rights and the rights of the Syrian people, in justice, equality, and dignity. Allow me to express on our behalf our deep solidarity with the Syrian families and to extend our respect to their passion, to their patience, and to their waiting in order to know the truth of their beloved people. We, the people who believe in human beings everywhere. I will start giving an idea about this report. Then my two colleagues, Joumana and Sima, will present the details of the report. So an introduction on this report. The report will shed the light on the repercussions of the disappearance and its impact on the Syrian families and the affected families, and shed the light on the repercussions and on the impact on women and on the families, those families who are trying to find for the past 11 years their families, their relatives, through conducting interviews with members of the individuals who are unfortunately disappeared. Most of them are women. And we have focused in particular on women among the families of the disappeared, including victims of the forcibly disappeared and the arrested people. And of course, the perpetrators are from different parties, and as well as the victims and their families are from different parties, so that we represent all the people and all the challenges. Of course, this will show the clear relationship between the enforced disappearance, considering violations for the civil and political rights from one side, and from another side, the violation for the economic, social, and cultural rights. And how can protecting the first is something very important to enjoy the second, and vice versa. The interviews have clearly shown of the Syrian patriarchal mentality and our community, because the social darkness also is one of the cultural, economic, and the political suffering, because these interviews clearly show the gender perspective and how this will affect women in a different way, because it really oppressed them at the economic and social and mental level, as continuing the cycle of violence that is entrenched in in their spirit, because of the gender inequality and because of the injustice in the Syrian community. This was clearly shown, the frustration through the interviews, the frustration of those families in the UN agencies and instruments, and not being able to support those families or to move forward in the portfolio of the disappeared people after 11 years of conflict. And this clearly shows that these families need to regain the trust in the international community and UN agencies and bodies through conducting and taking serious steps and procedures to know the reality and the destiny of their beloved. The importance of the communication the exchange of information with the families and not considering those families just a source of information, not more. They also need to know what happened after this knowledge and after these interviews and what are the procedures taken and to keep them in the loop on all the developments. This report was organized by UNHCR as a response, as an immediate and emergent response for the study that was organized by the Commissioner and thanks to the demand in March in order to shed the light on the needs of those families from a gender perspective so that we have focused in particular on women and the families of the disappeared, including the victims of the arrested and forcibly disappeared. And of course, this report was conducted by Syrian Feminist Lobby, supported by Rima Feminist Initiative, and we have immediately responded and worked on this report because we want, although we have a limited time, the content of the report. This report is divided into different chapters or paragraphs. Of course, there is a where we shed the light on the challenges that families are facing, other challenges like security challenges, for example, and it's divided the areas under the control of the regime or outside the control of the regime and their families outside, as well as social challenges, psychological challenges, and economic challenges. After that, there is, of course, shedding the light on the needs of the families of the disappeared men and women. There is also mentioning details, the support provided, the legal support, economic support, social support, psychological support, the need to regain the trust in the international community, as well as the recommendations that the team has come up with, of course, the team that has formulated this report, the methodology of this report. The research team has conducted 22 interviews, individual interviews, including 7 women and 5 men. Those are relatives for 40 people, 40 victims of the for disappearance, including 16 women, 7 men, 7 children. Of course, the list has included people who were disappeared since 2012 until 2021, so in different years. And that happened between April and May 2022. The place where those people are living are inside Syria, in areas under the control of the Syrian government, or in the areas that's under the control of the armed opposition factions, the areas that's under the control of the Tahrir al-Sham al-Nusra Front, and as well as the Democratic Syria forces, the camps on the borders, in addition to those who have interviewed in the neighboring countries in Europe, United States, and Canada. We made sure to focus on the diversity to know the perpetrators, Syrian government, ISIS, Jaish al-Islam, the national army supported by Turkey, Tahrir al-Sham, and others. And we have, of course, shed the light on where these people are living, and this happened, of course, on the personal level in order to make sure to cover most of the challenges, to most of the categories. We have chosen the people who, from different perspectives and from different social perspectives, we have chosen them from the different backgrounds. You will notice in this report that we have used imaginary names to respect the privacy of women and based on the demand of most of the families. Of course, promising that we will send all the details, the realities, and the facts to the officer. And of course, the recommendations of the team were based on the needs that were evaluated to guarantee the right to know the what happened to the disappeared people. Hopefully, we will reach a decisive solution to this cause, and of course, to know and to solve this crisis, the problem of disappeared people, and help their families at the economic, social, legal, and psychological level to protect the children who were born when their mothers were disappeared, and to provide information about their place where they are kept, and to know where are the disappeared children as well. Take serious procedures to oblige the Syrian government to provide all the data about what happened to those disappeared, and to know and to use all the lobbying and the pressure techniques that the United Nations own goal. For example, for the condition to provide the international support, for example, to adopt an approach that's based on the survivors and different mechanisms, and to conduct a cooperation with the families of the survivors, to guarantee the right to know the destiny of the disappeared among the ISIS, through conducting interviews and interrogations with ISIS members in the prisons, also to know about the mass graves in Syria, to know the evidence and protect those evidence at the mass graves, to guarantee the right to know the destiny and what happened to the disappeared, like Jaish al-Islam, for example, through conducting investigation with their leaders who are in Turkey and other countries, to establish a database, an international database for disappeared people, men and women from different parties, that includes the information and the communication with the families for updates, and to encourage the people to document the disappeared cases in a very safe way. To exert a pressure and lobby with the Syrian government to abide by all the UN instruments and to answer all the demands that they didn't answer yet. Provide the psychological support for free for the families of the disappeared, in particular for the mothers and the spouses and children. Provide the economic support as well for the families of the disappeared, and support the projects that provide generous, decent work for the women. Provide money and financial support for the families of the disappeared, especially those who are living inside Syria. Establish a fund to support people, provide facilitations also, mothers, and not to limit it to the spouses and children under 18, to benefit from the experience of the men and women advocates who defend the human rights that were accumulated for the past 11 years in this regard, through conducting dialogue with all the parties, also to cooperate and to follow up with the families who conducted documentation, funding also projects, small projects for women to be able to sustain their families without subject to exploitation, and provide financial resources and support that fulfill their needs. These were the recommendations that we have come up with, and now there will be a presentation for the challenges. In presenting the challenges, in addition, of course, to the psychological and security challenges that my colleague Sima will present later on, there are social, economic, and legal challenges that I will try to present very quickly. But what I want to say is that all of these challenges cannot be separated from each other, because it forms together a comprehensive series of challenges that really make the lives of these families of the forcibly disappeared, make it very difficult, very challenging, and very painful at different levels. And the social challenges, as we have seen, and as we have seen, security and psychological challenges, we have tried to differentiate between the families who are still living in the areas under the control of the regime, and we consider it, of course, among the autonomous authorities, or the areas under the control of the other forces. Unfortunately, after 11 years, since the beginning of the revolution and the conflict in Syria, the stigma and social exclusion and isolation is still a stigma that all the families are suffering from, unfortunately, in different areas. Of course, we know under the areas of the regime is because the intimidation and the fear, and because they're afraid of having these connections and this rapport with the families. So most of these families will be isolated and excluded, and no one will communicate with them. However, all of these repercussions is doubled and worse when it comes to women. So among the testimonies, for example, they said we are after years, long years of working with my colleagues at work, after her father was arrested and disappeared, her colleagues start to exclude her and isolate her. They communicate her at a minimum level only. There are other testimonies, for example, saying that even the shop owners they absented from communicated with them with those families. All of these have pushed many families to leave the place or the area or the region, either to displace to other places or to ask for asylum or to travel or to leave the country. There are social challenges also that we cannot ignore that all the families suffer from, including women. When one family will be arrested, so the whole family will be stigmatized. There is, for example, especially the single sisters for the arrested women. When they, of course, after, of course, the men used to after one of the women was arrested, no one now is asking for the hands of their daughter or asked to marry them. This is why they were excluded socially and they left the whole area. In addition to the spouses of the arrested people, they are like imprisoned because of this situation, and they cannot ask, for example, the absent divorce or the divorce in absentia, or to consider the disappeared spouse dead. They cannot marry again. They cannot choose another life. But they cannot continue their life because of the stigma and the blaming from the family most of the times. And because of this situation, women will be subject, especially those who have children, will be subject to indiscriminate behavior and blaming, and they will be intimidated and threatened by the families of the husband. They that they will take her children from her. So we all know that women are not protected in this situation, and the woman won't be given any right to deal with anything related to her children. The only authority is for the grandfather or uncle or any other male figure in the family. And now we would like to shed the light on the economic challenges that the report clearly shown that the families of the disappeared, especially women and children, are suffering from really bad, dire economic situation. And most of the cases, the breadwinner is the disappeared person. And as you know, in our society, we know that not all women were used to work and are ready and prepared. Suddenly they found that they are the breadwinner who should take care of herself and her family at the same time and try to find an opportunity, a job opportunity in very difficult conditions that accompanied most of the time with the exclusion and the stigma and the isolation and the limited experience that she has. This is different, of course, when you go to the democratic countries. However, we have also discovered that you should start from point zero, from the beginning, even in the advanced or developed countries that provide support for the refugees. In addition to the pain, there is a pressure as well, which is the rehabilitation and the competition to go to the labor market. In most of the cases, yes, these are some of the challenges, the huge challenges. Especially for the women who were suffering from financial situation that was totally different, and that most of the times have lost a lot because the regime have owned or confiscated all their properties and deprived them of everything. And the study clearly shown that women most of the times bear the financial expenses to try to search for disappeared, and they spent all their savings during this process, this searching process. Even some women have sold their wedding ring to be able to have access to any information, to get any information about the disappeared. We all know in the Syrian case, that the families of the disappeared were subject to financial embezzlement, and what's clearly worth mentioning that this process, and especially women, things are getting worse. And of course, they were subject to fraud from different sources, from different people, although sometimes they're in Europe and even in different areas. So they're subject to this financial embezzlement and the fraud in general from the middlemen, from the mediators. Unfortunately, yes, this is what's happening. And among the interviews also that we have conducted, I believe everybody were subject to these practices and these embezzlement. Unfortunately, yes, this is what happened. Now I would like to move to the legal challenges. We know that the enforceable disappearance have its repercussions, especially when it comes to women and children, because they don't have a social status or a legal situation. Women are not divorced or widows or married or single. And that's really what makes the situation worse. And this is what will increase the burden in these societies, especially when there are children and they need certain procedures to go to school. They need to have access to documents, personal documentation, and this is what makes really the other families not helping, and of course, this is increasing the burden to have access to the personal documentation or even some of the administrative documents that are needed in order to continue the life. In addition to the legal challenges, we found that this situation will continue for years and years, and this will complicate the situation more and more when it comes to the procedures and about sharing financial sources, the inheritance, sometimes any properties that goes to man, and this is what will make women, because of this really cloudy situation, to pay the price, and she will be deprived of all the properties and all the financial returns in general. When it comes to the needs, we have identified these needs in the report and have shed the light on the idea of help and support. How can we help overcoming this challenge? When it comes to the legal situation, we said that families, they need support, legal support and aid when it comes to having access to personal documentation. And there need to be a party who is in charge, an official party who is in charge to provide these documents, personal documentation that should be legal, of course. I'll give an example, although it is an example that might be very simple. There's one of the women, I'd like to thank her. She's with us, I think, today. And she has contributed in the interviews of the report. She say even in the asylum country, she used to be asked about their children. If she want to register them at school, she's been asked, where is her father? And she doesn't have any personal documentation. She cannot prove anything related to the father until in a very special circumstances she was able to bring a paper that proved the disappearance of this person from an official institution. And this document was really good and valuable and helped her a lot in facilitating the lives of their children and when it comes to their permits, their residence there as well, education and everything. The legal support is something very important and how to deal with the salaries, retirement wages, and salaries, the support needed. And this is why we ask to have a specific party organization that has a clear authority that can shed the light on this issue, the legal issue. When it comes to the economic situation, women have mentioned the necessity to provide generous job opportunities that protect them from exploitation. and suitable job opportunities that protect them from being in need, and at the same time, until doing all of these projects to have support and aid for the children of the disappeared. And really, it was weird. What I will say, there are areas in the north, there are allocations, subsidies for children and the families of the martyrs, but not for the disappeared. The organizations do not support in any way the families of the disappeared men and women, of course. And this is something worth shedding the light on, because this will only increase the burden, even the psychological burden and mental burden among those children who are in need all the time, and they always see their families in situations that are not suitable at all. When it comes to the social support, and that's something very important we need to focus on. Of course, protecting the families, and most of the time, women who feel that they are facing a huge challenges in the refugee areas and countries and neighboring countries. So they are alone. So in a very ambiguous situation, and sometimes there are members of their families in Europe and their neighboring countries, and unfortunately, I would like to mention that even after organizing this report, and we have communicated with the witnesses and have provided official papers to advocate for reunification in the European countries uh, to get the official papers and to get also the to ask for their residency. Also, unfortunately, was refused. All these demands were refused, and their situation is still ambiguous in countries where they know nothing about and what will happen to them and what will their problems will be solved. So, of course, providing the facilitations and helping them and their reunification and providing support for the family, all of these will help the families a lot. Social protection and legal protection as well. All of these are factors that we should shed the light on. And I would like to say that the communicating and dealing with this issue from a gender, and that women, in addition to all of these challenges, are subject to blame, isolation, stigmatization, and exclusion. Thank you for good listening. Thank you, Joumana, Sima. When I write any report, when I finish any report, I feel frustration. I feel disappointment. Really, because there is a really a problem in what we're writing, what we're listening. It's very difficult to summarize all of these stories as something written. It's unfair. They have talked a lot about years ago. They have talked about the problems and the complications that are created because of the different authorities and because of the change of the power on the ground and one geographical areas. And every time woman is the victim. But if we want to delve into the details of the enforcement disappeared, we'll find that, for example, the families that Jaish al-Islam have kidnapped and of course were embezzled to no information about their beloved. And after 2018, they had to deal with the middlemen who were working with the regime or others. So yes, in a new concept, ambiguous and cloudy relationship, and also those were kidnapped by the areas of the democratic Syrian forces who also embezzled them. We can hear you, Sima. I will talk about the security challenges that women have faced and start with the areas under the control of the Syrian regime. Everybody knows that most of the families are afraid of notifications and filing complaints before the public institutions because they're afraid of the security prosecution or any revenge. And despite of the instructions on this issue is only related to following up with the judiciary police. We found that women knock on many doors, such as the sheikh, religious leaders, reconciliation leaders. This is not an office. They go and knock on any office that they believe, or any door that believe they can do something. And Al-Faha, Qadsiya, Farehi, in addition to the leaders of the militias under the control of the regime, national defense forces, even for different factions, Palestinians and others, they go to the leaders. Sometimes they send demand to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So here, most of the time, we talk about women who disappeared from non-Syrian nationalities. What's really strange is that we receive strange information or answers. They will say, for example, that they are under investigation. Is this an answer since 2013? They say they're still under investigation, or they say they are in a specific branch, or they say you do not have any information. And this is, of course, we're talking about parties related to the Ministry of Reconciliation. So yes, can you imagine that in this journey and the pain, without mentioning all the times has led to sexual exploitation, sexual embezzlement, and rape in exchange for information. Of course, in addition to the mechanisms that the UN work on, and of course, this woman has talked. They have tried to raise their voice to the UN Special Envoys. They were threatened directly from the security. So all of these things are happening about the disappeared, and the regime and their families are following up on their cases among the regime. However, those who are disappeared among the Al-Nusra Front or others and their families are either with the regime or living in the regime areas also face security challenges and threats, and they'll be subject to security persecution in case they have communicated with the disappeared. And there were many cases they were imprisoned, their families were imprisoned because they have talked with people in the north areas to know about their family members. They will be imprisoned, they will be threatened. If they ask for demonstrations, to ask for their reason, addition, of course, to their embezzlements from influencers or from these parties in particular, that to promote most of the times that they can include their names in deals. And of course, those people will be subject to this suffering and oppression. I would like to give an example about a case and what Rima has talked about, how these interviews have revealed the link between the patriarchal mentality of the society and the inequality and its direct impact on women when it comes to forcibly disappeared. One of the women whom we have conducted the interview with to follow up on their case and how they have shed the light on and how she's been disappeared since 2013, when she knew that her father was a member in the Council of People or the Parliament, this has imposed on the family the idea of not mentioning her. Because he was afraid on his social status and political status, and he doesn't want to be stigmatized that he has a a relative who is in the opposition, although the family believes that he has influence and he can know the destiny and the reality about his niece. He even threatened the mother, that means his sister, that he was going to isolate her in the family home if she asks again about her daughter. So this family, in addition to the suffering and pain because her daughter was disappeared, because they were afraid of this uncle, and because they're afraid of the financial, they will deprive from the financial support he was giving her. The She didn't know any information, even the social media. She didn't dare to ask so that the uncle didn't accuse them of sharing information about her. Of course, the security situation and challenges won't end; they are unlimited. Some women have also told us that they were investigated in the neighboring countries and they were asked about things that they've never heard about. And those women who were under the control of the extremist groups also they feel that they were excluded and marginalized, and even when they try to find their daughters or talk, they will be excluded. So a Nusra Front, for example, they intervene in this issue, and the mother has nothing to do. She only wants to know the news. She doesn't have the right to know, and even she will be blamed. They will say, "Why you were there? Why were you arrested?" For example, and for example, they will say, "We would have exchanged to get a military figure, not woman." For example, the challenges also, when we found some of the families of the disappeared who reach the refugee countries, Europe, Canada, United States, although they are safe there, but are they free to follow up and to know what happened to their beloved? There will be many limitations. They won't be free at all. They will be cautious in communicating with the family members in the areas under the control of the regime to know about their beloved who are disappeared, or when they get approval on the social media, they also are afraid of those families in the areas in Syria. They're afraid on their destiny, and they believe that those families, when they are in Syria, they are hostages of the regime. In addition, of course, to the emotional embezzlement, the people who pretend to be good and they want to help them, and because they cannot check the information because they are far away, they do not know if they're lying or not. They do not know how close they are in the government, or they're only middlemen. So, yes, this is very difficult. The Kurdish families under the control of the national forces or national army, they're afraid to ask about the disappeared, also because they are afraid of being arrested. And you have seen the family whom with we have talked with one of the relatives how they are suffering in a really huge way, and they're afraid that the only daughter is arrested. So if arrested, it's really afraid that the fourth one who is helping the children of all her sisters who are arrested, they're afraid that she will be arrested as well. So, and they are suffering and they cannot do anything. Shumana has mentioned that all of these challenges are related to each other, really. They are interlinked, they are cross cutting. We cannot talk about the psychological challenges without talking about the security situation. And by the way, they are due to the security situation. and the security situation, also the economic situation. So all of these challenges are interlinked with each other. Although we have divided this in the report, but they are interlinked with each other. Among the issues also that they clearly shed the light on what woman suffers from, for example, women are always suffering. They are always in a continuous funeral at any occasion where they can have access to any information. This really, the mourning will continue, will be renewed. So they are in a continuous mourning. Every 3 or 4 months, they renew this mourning again in case they receive any news or they didn't receive it. Even worse than that, how the mother will raise her children. She doesn't know what to tell those children. Where is their father? Is he going to be back or not? Those women really. She told me, what should I tell them? Is he dead? What if he's alive and he returned? They will be shocked. Should I tell them that he's alive? And what if we found he's dead? Should I show him the picture and they will memorize his features or not? What should I tell them? And even, for example, one of the women who was kidnapped and she's in the detention center, her children, when she was kidnapped, she was 20 days. And but when she was released from a prison, their grandmother was showing the pictures, so they know the features. They know. So she didn't know if what she was doing was fair to those children or not. So yes, this psychological and emotional conflict was really destroying them. And here I would like to talk about the needs, and I will start with the psychological challenge because I've started with the psychological challenge and I continue and end with it. There is a need when it comes to psychological support. It's very important. And of course, it should take into consideration the specificity of the play of the person where he's living, the economic situation, because most of the time the people are not asking for these services because of logistics, financial situations. So sometimes they will say, it's okay, we don't want it. We are exhausting ourselves in other places to get the support that might not be useful. Besides, unfortunately, the psychological support, although it's very important in the serious situation, it's related to the activists who are in the public sphere and among everyone. So, any event, unfortunately, might lead to psychological trauma, like what happened, for example, in the solidarity. So yes, he would have been good at the mental level, but any news or any incident will really affect his psychological situation. Also, knowing the destiny of the disappeared in a legal way is something very important and is the priority, and this will only ease their suffering and will make a difference. I know that time is up, but finally I just want to say that an event that was organized in Brussels where the organizers have focused on data collection, and they were busy in data collection. So I want to say that if we could have focused on how to deal with this information better than how to collect it, I think we need to move forward to put an end to the suffering. This will be very important And many people were talking about the mechanisms that we are asking to establishing it, and we're supporting the demand of the families to establishing. They will say, what's the difference between the ICMP or the Red Cross or any other entity that has a mandate to search for the disappeared? I think those demands, the demands of the families, and this is a demand from us for the first time. It's true that the competence or the power will be a UN one, but it should be from the families in a Syrian perspective, from a Syrian perspective, and to involve the organizations who are involved in this. I'm done. This is everything. I just, if I want to say one word, it's true that the 5 men have participated in this report, that those 5 men have participated to talk about the woman disappeared. Unfortunately, two of them, two only, have talked because they have excluded women in the family, although they are mothers for the disappeared. They do not involve them in the searching process. In most of the cases, they will be subject to more pain and they will be subject to dangers. Thank you. Sorry, Rima. Now there is a very short intervention that will be given by our colleague Fariza Jahjah. She's a member of the Syrian Feminist Lobby. She has a testimony in this report. She will give a very short message that she wants to give to the people. She's a member, as I have said, the Syrian Feminist Lobby and the wife of the detained person, Nassar. Thank you, Rima. Thank you. I'm Farida Jahjah, the wife of Nasser Bunduk. Nasser Bunduk, I would like to shed the light on it. Thank you for Syrian Feminist Initiative and the Syrian Feminist Lobby. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to share my suffering and pain for the past years. I would also like to thank the UN for finally thinking of us and taking the necessary action as the families, the sons and the daughters of disappeared people. Even if you're late in this, or the UN is late in this action, but it's very important to work together hand in hand to be able, and you will be able to find an international mechanism that oblige the Syrian regime to release and to release the detention center, to tell us what happened to the destiny of our children, and who are our children who were killed because of torture. This regime, it's not enough only to cooperate with them. No, they need all the lobbying and the pressure tools and mechanisms. And in order to be practical, to find lobbying tools and accountability mechanisms and tools, it's very important to cooperate with us as families of the arrested people and to try to find easy way and channels to communicate with you. It's very difficult to communicate with you, to help you to be strong witnesses, to be active so that the United Nations can recognize that this disappearance is a methodology disappearance, is a systemized disappearance. This is why we need a space for communicating with the UN and for the international mechanisms, and we could not we cannot communicate with you. Of course, there's something realistic and practical that my colleague Joumana talked about. In my interview, I have talked about our situation in Europe. I'm a refugee in France. Being a refugee in France, of course, I have suffered in the past 8 years. I won't take about my suffering in the past 8 years. It's not time and it needs space. I won't take, of course, you can write books about our suffering in the asylum countries, but there's a problem. We do not have a documentation that approve the status of our husbands. I'm married. I don't want to remove this status. I want to keep it. He's my husband. I cannot cancel this. Of course, there's something written in France saying I can ask for divorce. I don't want to be divorced. This is my right to have a document to prove my case. My status this is that my husband is disappeared at the Syrian regime, and this is really obstructing my work. And anything I do in France, there are many questions. Is really your husband is detained? Is really he's arrested? Is really he's disappeared? I was shocked a couple of days ago. I was asking for a paper because I was asked to prove that what's the status of my husband. So I asked for this document. I communicated, and I found that in the United Nations, my husband is not documented, although I have documented at the Red Cross and in many other places. So please, we need to ask a document. In the end, we want to know the destiny, the whereabouts of our beloved. We want a serious investigation. Our suffering is huge, but we are courageous. We were able to resist. We were able to stand fast, to stay strong. This feeling, really, no one can explain it. No one is with us. You need to have new, creative, innovative tools. This is our duty. You need to be with us. You need to defend our cause. Thank you. At this time, at a short period of time, I cannot talk a lot. The suffering is unbearable.
Yes, thank you very much. I know that we don't have much time, but I just want to assure you that we hear you, and we hear also the previous speakers about the challenges that you're facing, and we assure you that we are committed to work in helping you in this regard. I'm very pleased to be joining this important event, and you all know that there is a growing attention to this important issue and to this tragedy of the people missing and disappeared in Syria. And the recent events with the amnesty decree, for example, and the desperation of families to know what has happened with their loved ones, whether they will be among those relieved, brings really again the urgent need to find a solution to this tragedy. As we have heard, women are affected disproportionately in this tragedy, and impacted in many ways. That's why we believe that organizations such as the Syrian Feminist Lobby, such as Euromed Feminist Initiative, and others have an important role to play to ensure that Syrian women are in the center of this change of the institutions that will bring the shape of the future of Syria. Now, we are also pleased, that we are working on this study about the establishment of a new mechanism to work and to clarify the fate and whereabouts of missing people. And we are pleased to see that you support such a call. This call is also supported by the Commission of Inquiry, by the IIIM, ICRC, and many others. So we believe that your support is essential as well. And we also want to highlight that this mechanism has a dual function, both to clarify the fate and whereabouts of missing people, but also to provide tangible support to families of those who are missing. Now, this is, you know that this would be a very long process, but the immediate next step would be to ensure that member states support such a proposal. So that will be important next step. And I wanted once again to assure you that our office will continue our support to your efforts. Thank you very much, and I'll pass very briefly the word to my colleague Cristal, who has joined us. Thank you again for all your work and efforts. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rima. And I wanted to join Demeter in thanking you, the Syrian Feminist Lobby, and especially the reporting team that prepared and interviewed and wrote the report, Death is Not the Worst That Can Happen, because it is super important work. And I know we all know that you did it under time pressure. And so we thank you for the care that you took. together with the other organizations that focus on elevating the needs and experiences of women. The support that Syrian Feminist Lobby and the EFI have offered and the perspectives of the women who are interviewed have been vital in helping sharpen our thinking on the gendered impact when people go missing or disappear, and on the ways to transform gender inequalities. And I know you said, Sima, I think you said that maybe you didn't focus enough on this half of it, but it was very clear to us that this was the direction of your thinking. And as well, what we took from the report is the fact that women must be full partners in all processes that provide solutions and propose solutions. So in this regard, as Demeter has said, the report really does, it draws a line in the sand, it holds us to account. And works like this need to crystallize all of our thinking as we continue trying to craft solutions to this tragedy. What the report foregrounded to our team, beyond what Sima, Joumana and Fariza have so movingly shared, is that we must also focus on practical remedies that will try to break these interlocked legal, economic, administrative, social barriers that women and children face. And as Fariza noted so strongly, families, victims and survivors have to be real partners in designing solutions. So the interlinked barriers that we heard about so poignantly, we know these amplify the horrendous limbo that women and children experiences, and they make more acute the unending pain and the continuous ambiguous mourning of not knowing. So I wanted to finally join Demeter in thanking you for sharing this vital work and to reaffirm Demeter's commitment that our office will continue to work to ensure that the experiences, the terrible challenges shared by the women that you interviewed.
Now I'd like to give the floor to Liliane, the co-president of Syrian Feminist Initiative. The floor is yours, Liliane.
Merci, Rima. Merci beaucoup. My first words will be to say how important it is for me to be with you for this meeting. But before this, my immediate will was to say, how long? How long? For now, more than a decade, we have been collaborating with Syrian feminist rights activists and civil society activists, and we are gathered around a common discourse and core principles on issues that are crucial for the future of their country. During the horrible escalation of violence in Syria, we fully supported partners, human rights, women's rights activists and lawyers who continue organizing and lobbying for the inclusion of women's rights at all stages of a peace and negotiation processes, but also pertain their relentless engagement for the respect of women's basic human rights. I would like today, on behalf of EFI, thank the Syrian Feminist Lobby for their tremendous work. Their report sheds light on the cruel challenges and on the pain of the families of the disappeared from a gendered lens. It is crucial indeed to keep shedding light on the stories of people, the journey of those who are in search of their beloved ones needs to be shared. Their struggle needs to be respected and not mocked or disregarded. EFI has been supporting the Syrian Feminist Lobby in the advocacy efforts to uncover the fate of the disappeared, and we will continue to consider this issue as a main priority for achievement of sustainable peace. The work that the Syrian Feminist Lobby has done with the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights is of major importance, as it highlights the tragic consequences that the enforced disappearance has on the families of the disappeared, without eluding neither the sexual harassment and sexual advancements women face when they try to inquire about their relatives, nor the shame they endure when released from prisons as women and are perceived as a source of dishonor. The fight of women for a better world is a continuous struggle that requires the international community's solidarity and support. Yes, the international community needs to finally look at this file as a priority and understand its major importance. Accountability mechanisms must be strengthened. A fair and just system must be urgently established. As said, there will be no peace without reconciliation and accountability. And we will stay, dear friends of Syrian Feminist Lobby, besides you until you reach this goal. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for giving me a minute. I will also be short. While the IIIM's mandate is focused on accountability for international crimes, we recognize that the most pressing concern for many Syrians is accounting for the staggering number of persons who have disappeared as a result of the Syrian conflict. And so as a part of our criminal accountability mandate, we're already prioritizing ways to include and amplify these concerns, for example, by specifically including the harms caused by enforced disappearance as potential crimes in our analytical work and through sharing of evidence with competent jurisdictions that are engaging in criminal investigations. We're also including the gendered harms caused by such crimes, and this report will be very important to support us in these efforts, especially because of the approach taken to interview a broad range of survivors and family members, and to reflect the many gendered impacts and the specific effects on children, entire families, and communities. So we really commend the authors and the survivors for putting together this report, shedding light on this crucially important issue, and for sharing it so that we can improve our understanding and integration of these issues in our work. Now, Dimitar, my colleague from OHCHR, mentioned that the IIIM supports a dedicated mechanism specifically for assisting in the search of missing persons. So I reiterate that support. And even before that happens, we've already looked at intersections with our accountability work where we can take proactive support to leverage intersections with our own mandate, even if it's not specifically the main purpose of our mandate. So for example, we're already identifying information when we're searching for evidence for criminal cases that may assist in the search for missing persons. So that if there is a mechanism established, we'll be in a position that we could assist. So thank you again to the authors. Please be assured that your voices are being heard, and we look forward to using your report in our work.
Mervat Shhade, I'm the wife of this missing person, Hamad Hassan Khalil. I just wanted to say that the enforced disappeared are categorized for those at the regime, ISIS, Al-Nusra Front. For example, my husband, we don't know where. He's not under any category. He was kidnapped in the north areas of Syria and they leave Aleppo. He was in Turkey. He entered Syria. Until now, I have no information whatsoever. I didn't keep it away. I didn't try to use it. There are people who disappeared and there is no category given. I don't know who kidnapped him and to whom he was given and to whom he was transferred. This happened 5 years ago. If you can take this into consideration, thank you. Thank you, Mervat. Thank you, of course, all our solidarity with you and to what happened. Of course, the situation is very difficult, This is why we hope that these cases are taken into consideration and to know more similar cases. Thank you, Marwa. I just want to say that these cases are covered. So we have, for example, one of the cases that we don't know who has committed this violation and what have they done in research. The people who we don't know who kidnapped them, of course, we cannot ignore them. This is the responsibility of the authority who's in control. And this is what I've talked about. In fact, having different authorities, consecutive authorities, and this at the same place really is a problem. But of course, we cannot ignore those people. So, of course, uh, do not be afraid. We will collect all the information about those people, any information needed. And this is why data collection is very important. Noor? I think you have talked about everything. There's an idea that I want to talk about. Maybe I was among the people who was targeted. The blame of women, when they blame women, for example, the girls were the reason why their mother was lost. It's something very painful. For me, maybe I understand this, but my brothers and sisters didn't really accept it. It's something very painful. Kidnapping women in exchange for men, this is really increasing this morning that we are living in. Thank you. Nisan, good day, Rima, to you and all the colleagues. Thank you for this painful report. Hopefully, this cause will remain a humanitarian cause. Unfortunately, reaching any achievement is still very weak. What we want to focus on based on our work and some of the sessions in collaboration with ICMP, we have covered some of the issues related to the detainees. It's very important to involve detainees in everything we're doing. Of course, all of these ladies have talked about their husbands, the woman that talked about her husband. Their feeling is very special. Their message is very special. They need to answer it directly without having between them and the people in charge any mediator. Of course, it's very important to have organizations working on these issues very in a technical way, but also it's very important in any project for the families to be there because they know how to express their real suffering and everything they're doing. Thank you. Thank you, Ahmed Arufur from the ICMP. I just want to shed the light on an idea based on the numbers. Less than 10% of those who received cases are among women. So we wanted to know why the families are not sending us the information of filing complaints, and we have seen a really great umbrella about the reason. So this is why here we need to think together in a common way. How can we find a mechanism to create a safe space for women and their families to notify and to share about the women? I remember there were women and mothers, they want to tell about their children, however, their husbands or their children prohibited them. There are women and uncles, and they are in front of the society. They say, yes, we do not file a complaint, but when they return, they were crying and suffering. This is why, and for all these reasons, maybe in a very short way, we need to try to find a way to find the reasons and try to find solutions also for every category. And of course, here you know that geographical distribution is very important, how close it is. And the third point, which is very important, which is the role of the survivors from the detention and helping the families of the disappeared. I think our story is long. There are many things that we need to work on. But what I'm sure of is that it's not cooperate, we won't work together, and we won't move forward in a fast way. Thank you. In the end of our session, I would like to thank everyone for their valuable participation, all those who has intervened for their valuable intervention. I would like also to note that the Syrian Feminist Lobby will publish this report in English, Arabic, and French. Also, the report will be sent to all of those who have attended with us today. This meeting, I would like to thank you again all our regards and support and solidarity to the families of the disappeared and missing persons. Thank you.